Okay, thank you for tuning into Stampscaping 101. I just stamped out this Northern Lights type of background scene against these trees right here. The main point about this video was I wanted to talk about the application and usage of sky figures that are kind of just defined by delicate tone and how to retain, the spirit of the light within this type of imagery when you're using various darker tones with it, okay? And how basically just not to eradicate the spirit of the design itself by over toning it with ink, okay? This scene right here, or well, not a scene, but this image is just defined by, concentrations of dots and in various concentrations, a range of concentrations from light to heavy, all right? And this video goes into that, and I'll talk about the direction of the sponging technique that you can use in here, how to take these images and how to get the initial impressions where you don't have harsh lines, of the image itself. And on this scene right here, it was just a simple finish, adding in some nice dark silhouettes in the form of these hickory trees in black ink against that colored background. So anyways, just a real simple composition and kind of fun to do. I really like, as I say in this video, I like these sky figures and the dramatic things that can go on in the sky and how it can add a sense of drama and atmosphere and emotion to your scenes. So anyways, I hope you enjoy the video, and if you have any questions on the technique, as always, just leave a note in the comments section below. Thanks again for tuning in. Okay, I'm looking through this book right now called Aurora, The Mysterious Northern Lights by Candace Savage. I love sky figures and interesting things that go on in the sky. I think your skies are often the thing that kind of sets the mood for a scene. It's kind of a lot about where the color comes from, and it just kind of sets the emotional character of a scene. We might have a lot more imagery going on, but quite often what's going on in our sky areas will, make a big impact on a scene. And a lot of these things can be achieved just with the use of some sponging techniques, and the different colors you can use in the in your combinations that you might use. And if you see in this book right here, I mean, you can see that the Northern Lights or Aurora Borealis has really come in all kinds of different color schemes. I was just looking through here, just flipping around and trying to decide on what color scheme I wanted to go with. And let me see if I can find it. There's this purple one that I liked. I like all of these, but oh, I love this blue one right here. See these little stars in here. I mean, these things would be really fun with the gel pen accents that we can add. But I have some imagery. Here it is. Here's that purple one again, right on the opening cover. We have some deep violets here transitioning into violet, pink, and then white down here. This is back in the days of film and long exposures, so what we have here is it's a really grainy photograph, but it really looks spectacular. And just having some imagery in the foreground in silhouette form, I mean, that's something that we can easily do in stamping, right? But for now, I want to go for something like this and, you know, try to achieve some of these transitions here. I look down here and there's some blue, and then where the blues are overlapping with the pinks, it starts to transition into violets, and then we have the deeper violet and going all the way to black up there. So easily done in stamping form. Now I'm going to pick out some different brands of inks just for the sake of showing you that you can mix and match, but what we're going after just in general is I'm kind of picking out a range of values within that given color schemes here. Now, I don't know what that milled lavender is going to look like with the distress ink, the Bahama blue. Oops, these two are the same right here. But just picking them out like so, that's just about all you need to do. And then just in general, I kind of lay my pads out. As I've mentioned in other videos, I kind of lay them out in a way that I think it's transitioning from lights to darks. Now, in this scene right here, I'm not actually going to do a whole scene, but I'm just going to do that background. And I'll start off using the Aurora Borealis stamp here. It's called Rays, just one type of one, but I wanted to get into the usage of these types of sky figures where there's not a hard definition of something within the design itself, so it's just kind of defined by a lot of dots in various densities, okay? The higher the density, the darker it gets. But for the most part, there's a kind of a very fine density, and when you come to start using these images, there's a danger if you use too much ink over the top of them that you'll completely eradicate the design itself, just because you won't be able to see it anymore if you run too many hard tones over the top of something that's been stamped out that's fairly delicate. Okay, but I'll get into that, and I'll explain what I mean by that when we do it. But, okay, that being said, I usually don't want to stamp out these images in too light of a value, so I want to go with something that's preferably kind of a mid-value to darker. You can even mix and match if you want to. If you have some pens, you can swipe some colors in there or whatnot. But what I'm thinking about is maybe one of these two colors. Maybe I'll go in darker or add a few streaks of another color in there. Okay, let's see. Memento. Why don't we go with something like this? The Memento blue, Bahama blue, and the Marvy number 10 light blue are approximately the same value and hue. So let's add some of this in. This color right here. Okay, just checking to see if I have total coverage. Okay, now here's one of my tricks on sky imagery that have kind of a hard, outline around it, which this does. It has these, 4 edges, okay? One of the things I like to do is I like to go around the edge and I'll remove some of the ink, okay? That's for the purpose of the edges being easier to blend in to the surrounding area. If I stamp this out and it has a real harsh line around it, in a darker value especially, then we have to work a little bit more to blend that edge in. So if you inherently have an image that's kind of fading out on the edge, then it's inherently easier to blend in with the surrounding area. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, and you can see right here, that tone of blue right there would have been the same all along that edge right there had I not wiped some of it off, okay? Let's go for a second impression too. Let's see. I'll need to ink up that half. Okay. Let's go in and do the same. Kind of wiping off about a 1/4 inch to even a 1/2 inch, you know, when I do this. Okay, now here's these streaks right here, moving out like that. There's my first impression. If I do it like this again, these streaks will kind of be going into these streaks right here, so I'm just going to rotate this around and keep that same type of fanning direction consistent with the first impression. So taking it like that and stamping it more kind of in a vertical manner on the second impression. Okay, kind of looks weird right now because it's kind of these isolated impressions of this, I don't know, these light rays going off, you know, for no apparent reason. Okay, now let's add in some additional tone, okay? Let's do it with, I have my stylus tools here, but I also have these little foam sponges. Maybe we'll use both, okay? I did a video using these things right here. A lot of people have access to these things, and they work pretty good. Alright, let's use quite a bit of color on our first hue, our first layer of ink that we lay down. Let's go with some aqua re-inker fluid, okay? Actually, you know what? I always do that. Let me try this milled lavender distress ink. Let me see what that looks like. Let me go with a clean tip. That milled lavender looks pretty light in value, so... Actually, I don't remember when I used this milled lavender left. I don't even know how inked up it is. It's pretty inked up. It's a fairly light tone. It's almost like a... It looks like a lavender that has maybe just a hint of some warmth to it. Okay, now I'm using this in the direction of these rays right here, okay? This first color that I'm using is, you can barely see it, okay? So I'm not too worried about using it over the rays themselves, the lighter areas right here. But I'm going to want to retain those light rays. That's what I meant about that kind of that delicate image, you know, it's not defined by anything but a few dots, so if I just color everything out, we're not going to be able to see those rays. But just in general, I'm kind of using my application tool. In this case, it's the Colorbox Stylus tools. I'm using them in the direction of those rays themselves, okay? Okay, that looks pretty good. That's a good base color there. Ranger is going to has discontinued the Adirondack line of inks. As far as I know, in all incarnations, that includes the Adirondack Lights, which I love to use as a base coat. Okay, moving on from the milled lavender and moving into the aqua re-inker. Okay. Interesting. Quite a bit darker. Okay, let's be careful and let's retain those rays, okay? Okay, now you want to go into the stamp design itself, you don't want to just go right up to that edge, otherwise it's going to have a hard edge stopping right there if you just go like that. So I am running into the image. But going back to that, the colors being discontinued, or the line, you know, something like this milled lavender, that would work, you know, pretty good for a base color. That lavender could be used for, it's not a warm tone, but you could use it in a warm tone scene, such as like a sunset, or, you know, anywhere where you'll have kind of yellows and oranges or something like that. You can use it as a base layer, and it should be fine. You know, you run some yellow over the top of this, and it will read kind of a little bit more orangish, you know, in hue. All right, that looks pretty good on that one right there. That was the, let me see, so far we've gone through 2 colors and 2 different brands, no less. All right, let's move on to what I think is probably going to be a darker color. This is number 61, Lilac, Marby Lilac. Okay, now the Marby inks are a little bit thinner in terms of their consistency, viscosity, whatnot. Okay, it's not very much of a difference, so I do have some of the other inks in here, but let's just move on. Let's move on to this number 9 pink. It's a very bright pink. A lot of different ink manufacturers have a really great pinks out there. Okay, now that scene in the book, that photograph that I was showing you, has a lot of pink hue, some quite vibrant pink hue, so I think I am going to run this pink into some of these rays. I'll retain some of maybe the white in some areas, but let's really take this pink and move it down into the composition, okay? Now, the top part of this is probably going to be largely black and deep violet, just like that photograph in the book. So I'll still put the pink underneath it though. Okay, so we have a nice transition. That's where we're able to kind of achieve these color glows. It's because you have these colors, foundation colors underneath the darker ones, affecting what you see overall. Okay. Like I said, I could do this scene, or this background, the sky, without that image of the Aurora Borealis rays. But this one's just kind of giving, you know, it's kind of gives you a head start, and it's something to work around. I mean, I do it both ways. Sometimes I use this type of image, and sometimes I don't. I just go off, you know, pure sponging technique, I guess. All right. I usually don't like to have such a bright color, such as the hot bright color like this pink, but since this is, you know, an Aurora Borealis, and we saw it in that photograph, I'm not so worried about having such a super bright pink in the composition. Okay, that was the pink, number 9 pink. Alright, now let's start moving into some of the different blues here. This is the number 10 blue. Okay. It's a lot closer to that blue that was used, the Bahama blue that stamped the image out. So when you get to that same hue, the image starts to blend in the surrounding area a lot more now, because we're using that same hue and same value, okay? Sometimes it's not quite, sometimes we can't get as dark of a hue if we're using it in this method of multiple layers, even if it's the same color that we've used in the impressions. And the reason is because the colors underneath what I'm laying down with this blue are kind of sitting there in a puddle, so, you know, these darker colors don't transfer onto the paper as fast, because it's starting to achieve kind of a, I don't know, a super saturation, if you will. Okay, now that was that number 10. Let me go back to that Memento Bahama Blue. Okay. And this color is being applied. It's going on easier than I thought it would. I thought it would kind of resist this ink a little bit, at least. But it's going on pretty good. And it's transferring into the paper. I don't know if it has anything to do with the super dry weather that we're having here, and the cards are drying much faster. And it certainly could. Weather can play a pretty significant role in the drying time of inks on your cards. If that's the case here, it's really drying pretty fast. So that being said, it's a good thing that I put down a lot of that base layer ink, okay? Because it's really making this easy to apply these inks, you know, the colors that I'm using. Oh yeah, I mentioned I was going to use some of those sponge tips. Let's use a sponge tip here. You just take the sponge tip and just kind of squeeze it like that. There used to be kind of these alligator clip holders that people would, you know, use on a stick and kind of dab it down. I feel I need the pressure of my finger behind it, you know, so I can kind of wipe down on that easier, I think. For me, at least. I can see this pad starting to break down a little bit. I don't know if you can see. See a little bit right here. A little bit of an indentation in the foam. That's what happens a lot of times when the fabric starts to break down. I'm not really worried about that type of thing, because this pad, I mean, I might have had it for, this pad could be 15 years old, and it's seen, just about all my pads have seen a lot of action, so to speak. So, I don't know, 15 years of pretty constant usage. Some of them have gone to, some of these on my desk have gone to workshops where they're being used, you know, for hours on end, re-inked, shipped around, used at demo tables, you know, throughout the course of an 8-hour convention day or something. Okay, still going in, still using that same motion from the outside, working towards the light like that. We get this nice kind of transition of value, where you start off your stroke. It's going to be, your applicator is going to be moist, because that's where I re-ink, and then I go into it, okay? So darkest kind of away from the light source, and then as you streak into it, your streak becomes, dark to light, and you're working from dark to light, so you don't have these harsh shapes right next to your light source. So just kind of keep with that motion, and you'll be fine, have that good base layer. All right, that was violet, by the way. I think there's an eggplant Adirondack pad that would be really good in this one. It's a really dark violet. Let me see what I have here. I can't tell. Someone has put a thing over the top of it. I've sent these pads away sometimes for various articles and magazines, where they want to get a still life shot of the card that I've done, and the pads around it or something, whatever was used to make that card. And I think that's what this one was, but they've covered up my the name of the ink. I don't know, I should know it by now, but I can't tell if this is a number 3 blue or if it's the Prussian blue. The Prussian blue is really dark. I think that might be a 3. No, this one's a 3. Okay. Let's see. Okay. This one's a Prussian blue for sure. It's the number 29. One of my favorite colors. I love all of the hues that are almost black, blue that's almost black, greens. And this blue is one of them. So you see that by kind of wiping that in there, it starts to achieve this kind of like those curtains, that are in Northern Lights. Okay, let's switch up. Let's move on to a black. Okay, I'm just using the same sponge. I'm just, getting darker and darker on them. I didn't even, rinse this. This is the same sponge that I used on one of those previous videos, and I didn't even rinse it out. So I'm just going with that as is, and it's fine. The one thing about using these sponges is that I probably have... There's less control over it than the stylus tools, because this is such a big tip and it's kind of squishing around on me a little bit. But, I mean, not to the point where I'm, having, it's a really kind of a difficult tool to work with, but... I'm starting to think, I think I'm going to switch back to that stylus tool here in a bit, just to get these final curtains, down. Okay, I think I will. Yeah, easier. Easier, convenient, as far as the application goes. These are probably cheaper and more convenient to buy. And again, these are just makeup wedges. I'm sure it comes in a different packaging now. This is probably purchased, I don't know, 10 years ago. Okay, let's darken the edges, because this is going to be something where we're viewing it at night, right? As you know, I like to darken my corners quite a bit. I think it frames things off really well to do that from a compositional sense. Okay. I won't use black on a corner if the rest of the area there is fairly light, but if it gets kind of dark, that's my opportunity to kind of vignette, you know, the scene or card. All right. Okay. All right. That looks, well, I tell you what, let me pull out that book again and let's see what we did here as far as kind of going for, you know, a rough, kind of depiction of, you know, the color scheme. There's a little bit more pink in this one. I mean, I can go back and I can add, you know, more pink around here. There's more light down here. I'm trying to think if I want to add some more of that pink kind of right in there. You know, where it's a little bit more dominant and less, you know, of these spires of light. Of course, you know, that's, these little light fingers are kind of in the image itself, but I don't know, roughly, you know, getting these tones right here, and, you know, that's a similar pink, so this little warmer area down here is kind of similar. I think I will go. Let's take and add a little bit more pink into this scene. Let me take a brand new sponge applicator. Okay. Alright, that looks okay. Where do I want to put this? Let's go in here. Okay. Ooh. That pink is really juicy with ink. Okay, there. Actually, that does look better, doesn't it? It has a better glow to it now. Alright. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let me add some more of this into this darker area, just to give it kind of an overall saturated depth and rich character. Alright, something like that maybe. like I said, normally I'm kind of hesitant to have that vibrant, that electric an intensity in a scene, but kind of if the subject matter itself calls for it, then, you know, then it looks appropriate, I guess. Not that we're trying to replicate, I always say this, not that we're trying to replicate, you know, nature exactly or something like that, but I don't know, it's kind of referencing nature for sure, and if it looks really bizarre, I don't know, sometimes that's what's in people's minds when they're looking at, you know, a piece, you know, it's their first kind of a thought or impression. It's not really the first thought I want people to have is you know, what the heck type of response. Okay, going into the scene and adding some stars. One thing I found kind of interesting, I don't know if it's because the photographic technique of film. This book came out years and years ago, but one of the things I'm noticing is, you know, you see a lot of the stars in the Aurora Borealis itself, but in the darker areas, kind of there's less. I would have thought that the stars would stand out more. See like that? They're in those little dots are kind of in the haze. Then you get out here in the darkness, and you really can't see the stars as much. Right here, all those little specks. And I mean, you see a few out here, but it seems like they're kind of more visible in the light instead of in the dark. I would have thought they would stand out in the dark more. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to, I guess, kind of add more in the lighter areas. It looks interesting like that too, kind of like light beams coming down. Maybe I'll add some trees to this scene, just so it's just not only a sky. If I add anything to the foreground here, I'll want it to be, you know, solid. I don't want something that's going to be kind of a delicate foreground image. So something kind of like a strong silhouette of a tree, maybe, that you can stamp over the top of this in black. Okay, let me go and see what I can come up with in terms of an image for this scene. Okay, just to change things up a little bit, I don't know, my main kind of inclination are to use some pine trees when I do that so much, so let me use this hickory right here. And just that alone I didn't think would look good, so I'm going to use I'll probably use 2 different sizes of it, but let's see what it looks like with the larger size. Now, I really want a strong silhouette of this, and I'm going to stamp it in black. Oops, my camera just memory card ran out of memory there. I forgot to delete the previous video off of it. But what I was saying is what I did was re-ink this pad when I got the stamp. Alright, let's see what we should do here. Let's just have this coming in from... I'll put it fairly high, okay? And off to the side. I don't want to just stamp over my entire background, you know, where you can't see it. This is a fairly large stamp and solid stamp, solid image. Okay, so we have that. Let's balance it off a little bit. So now it's like, I don't know, it kind of puts you on Earth, you know, instead of having this being some kind of like nebula out in deep space or something like that, by putting these trees in here. And, I don't know, I guess it provides a little bit of a framing element to the scene, something near against something very far. I did that one at a, you know, a little bit of a lower height than the first one, to try to prevent kind of a redundancy. And now let's go with a small one. Now I'll put 2 off to the side and kind of the other one off on the other side. Okay. Something like that. Now, I might go in here and tweak it a little bit, maybe add a little bit of a darker tone to the left and right corner, but we'll see. And I think some, maybe some pigment ink might look pretty interesting in here. But let me wait till some of these stars dry a little bit, and then I will come back to it, okay? Okay, back once again to put some final touches on this scene. Kind of an interesting glow. I don't know if I've done a quite so much of a pinkish Aurora Borealis before, but I'm going to put in some of this white pigment, sorry, I can't talk, to create kind of a little bit more of a glow around some of these stars, just to kind of differentiate them a little bit and to bring different texture, so the dots aren't quite so monotonous in terms of their texture. Okay, now as I'm adding some ink to this, I'm kind of blotting a lot of it out, and in doing so, it's kind of softening and smashing the tip of my cotton swab. Okay. Kind of the softer cotton swabs work better for this technique. This pad might be a little bit dry. In fact, it is. Boy, I don't even need to really dab it off. It's... okay, I found a wet spot on it. Okay, so... going back, the cotton swabs that are a little bit softer just kind of work better in this technique. Some of them are really tightly wound, and I don't know, they're almost like more acrylic or something like that. But I found I don't know, I guess the real cotton or whatever tend to work better. Okay, so some of these are glowing a little bit more. Okay, see that right there? It kind of breaks up the monotony of that little, you know, very sharp dot. Okay, maybe I'll go in here to these kind of softer white areas too, and I'll just add a little bit of this pigment ink as well. It adds a bit of atmospheric conditions, maybe softens it up a little bit in there. Maybe I can put some over the top of some of my trees there. On the branches, you know, maybe they're catching some of that light, albeit a very faint light. Okay, that looks about right. Just a few trees on the bottom kind of makes this scene a little bit more of a complete scene. A little bit of horizon glow working in there. But anyways, darker tones, medium tones starting from the outside and working your way in terms of this image. A lot of saturated tones on the underside of the darker tones, and just going with some really vibrant tones to lay the foundation in here. Nice dark silhouettes on the bottom, and just some little After Effects highlights with the white gel pen and Colorbox pigment ink. So anyways, just a really simple composition to show some of these northern light types of effects. Like I said, I just worked it around the Aurora Borealis stamp of ours, but you certainly could do something like this without a formal stamp to start you off with, but something like this can just be a nice foundation, to kind of guide you and to work around, and to just kind of give you a head start in terms of, what kind of your rays of light direction, or curtains of light, I guess would be more accurate, could look like. In the end result, just kind of seeing it there and knowing what to work around. But like I said, if you just kind of did this whiskey layered type of application with, whatever, type of sponging method you wanted to go with, you could certainly, establish something like this just with that technique. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this scene, and thanks for watching the video.